Com. So glad to have you here today. Welcome to the Ask Ken show. So this is an event that I do once a month where I have a platform where people can ask any questions about spirituality, which is tons of fun. And so if you're watching this right now, please feel free to type in the comments any questions that you have about spirituality, and what I will do is live channel the answers. And I do this for two reasons. One is because I want to emulate and show to my students that you can channel like me anywhere, anytime, on the spot, in the moment, any situation, any circumstances. And then also the other reason is because where else do you go to get these spiritual questions answered? So that's why I provide a platform where we can do all this. So let's jump right into our first question. Our first question is it possible to switch timelines to a better version of ourselves? This was from a previous viewer. I have heard of this and not sure if my current timeline is able to be altered. The answer is yes and yes. So let me dive into this. We have timelines that we're going down, and sometimes these timelines aren't always the healthiest and best timelines for us to be in. Sometimes, have you ever felt in a time in your life when you feel like you're not quite on path, you're not quite going in a direction that's good and healthy for you? And then that means maybe that you're not quite in your highest timeline. You're in a timeline. Everyone's in a timeline, but it's not always the best. And so what we can do is there's a couple of ways that we can do this. One is what I recommend all the time. It's keep making good, healthy choices. I know it sounds easy, but whenever I notice that I'm off track or going in a direction that's not good and healthy for me, then I ask myself, I say, so if you're watching this, I always recommend, if you're ever watching the Ask Ken show, to get a pen and paper out and you could jot down notes. So one of the questions, if you are taking notes, is how can I get myself on a better timeline or a higher timeline? If I'm making unhealthy choices, then I ask myself is, what is the next right choice? If I've made a mistake or screwed up or did something inappropriate or whatever it might be, the question I ask then is, how can I make this right? So not all the time can you make things right, but almost all the time you can. And let's say I accidentally bump into somebody's vehicle and then I scratch it. Okay, so I leave a note, and then I pay for that. I pay for that mistake. So that's where I'm not just, I own that mistake. I make it right. I pay the person back to get the vehicle fixed or whatever it is. Or if I put my foot in the mouth and I do something in my mouth and I do something inappropriate, then okay, how can I make things right? How can I apologize to this person? And again, not all the time you can, but most of the time you can. So things like that. The other question you can also ask is, what is the next right step? So if I'm going on this path because I've made inappropriate mistakes or inappropriate decisions, what I found in my life is that oftentimes one bad decision leads to another bad decision, which leads to another bad decision, which leads to another bad decision. And oftentimes and then it takes me on this path. And so if I can try to circumvent that quickly and as fast as possible by asking myself, well, instead of keep going down this downward path, I can ask myself early on and say, okay, I've made this inappropriate thing or made this inappropriate decision. What is the next right decision? What is the next right thing to do? And then get myself back on this path. So that's one way you can do it. I'm actually going to do something really cool that I haven't really done in the Ask Ken show before, but I do quite often in my Ascension group healing that I also do once a month. And that's where you can log in, receive mass healing for once a month. Mass healings. I have over 100 different healing modalities. And then also, I also do spiritual upgrades. So this is going to kind of be a combination of the two. So whether you're watching this live or watching the recording, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do some timeline healing with you now. So I'm going to do two things. I'm going to do timeline healing on your timeline first, and then I'm going to bump it up into a higher timeline, bump you up into a higher timeline, and then I'm going to do some more healing. So if you're watching this, try to feel this in your body, okay? So here we go. Okay. So I'm working with Archangel to do this. So I'm doing timeline healing first, which is connected to your soul. Good. Okay, now we're ready to bump you up into that higher timeline. There we go. Good. Okay, now I'm going to expand your timeline, make it longer, extend it, and light it up. And this gives you more opportunities. And then thicken it up, lighten it up, and there we go. Okay, we're done. Akashic Records is good. Updated your Akashic Records as well. Okay. So without going into all the intricate details, basically what I did there, I have whole trainings on how to do this. So everything I do, I always teach my students how to do this themselves. I don't have that scarcity mindset where I think I need to keep all this stuff to myself. There's some amazing teachers and practitioners out there that they can do amazing things, but they don't necessarily have the ability to teach it or train it, or maybe they don't have the desire or want to. I do. I don't have that scarcity mindset. I want to teach my students everything I know so that they can do amazing things with it and help other people. It's not about me. It's about making this world a better place by teaching people how to channel. And also, any healing modalities that I can teach my students along the way is great, including timeline healing, which is what I just did. So in case you're wondering what I did, the intricacies of what I did was you have your timeline is connected to your soul. So what I had to do is I had to increase and strengthen the connection between your soul and your timeline at the beginning. And then once I did that, then I was able to bump you up into a higher timeline. And then once I did that, then I was able to strengthen the timeline itself, expand it, make it even longer, and then also thicken it up, make it brighter. So almost like a tube, like a glowing fluorescent tube, and then brighten it up, make it longer. And that's important because with timeline healing is you want to make sure that the timeline extends far out into the future, not just really short. You want to make sure that it's not frayed, but it's nice and like compact, like it's in a good condition, and then also nice and brightened up, like really bright. So like your timeline, if you think about your timeline right now, if you feel into it and you just received this, think of it like you just have this amazing like bright future ahead of you. That's what we're talking about. That's exciting. Okay, so that's your timeline. Super cool stuff. If you're watching this, this is called the Ask Ken Show. And so I did something different that I've never actually done, which is some actual healing. I do training sometimes on the Ask Ken Show. I do all sorts of stuff. So stay tuned. You never know what's going to come up in the Ask Ken Show. But again, my goal is to teach you everything that I know. And that's where the formal trainings come in. So I have a whole certification trainings, workshops, retreats, you name it. It can all be found on my website, channelinginc.com. And I'd like to say hi to a few people that are watching. So we have Olivia on YouTube. We have Tia on YouTube as well. And we have some other people who was there. Cora on YouTube. Sing a song. I like that. um, Okay, so we have also a bunch of people on Instagram and Facebook and a bunch of the other platforms, media platforms. So if you're watching this, feel free to say hi and where you're from, what's your name, where you're from, and I will give you a shout out. Also, if you have any questions about spirituality, that last question came from one of the previous Ask Ken shows that it came in just after I finished, so I was able to get to it now. But if you're watching and you have any questions about spirituality, just type the question in your chat there, and I will live channel the answer. So that's how the Ask Ken show works. All right. Yes, Cheryl from Edmonton. Welcome, Cheryl. Nice to have you. Good to see you again. Okay, and we have our next question is, Why do some souls incarnate more often, whereas other souls do not? How is this decided? So, great question. Is souls, the way it works is that when you, incarnation 101, is when you die and you cross over, you go to the astral realm to be with your soul family. And then when you're in the astral realm, you hang out and reside in the astral realm. And you're not just a bunch of orbs that are just hanging out and just floating around like aimlessly. You're actually doing different tasks. You're maybe doing some learning, some evolution, some schooling. You might learn about mathematics or science or the arts or so on and so on. And then you take that knowledge that you're learning in the astral realm and then you come and incarnate and you attempt to apply some of that while you're incarnated. So it's not guaranteed. There's a whole topic on that where things aren't guaranteed. Life is messy sometimes, and there's people have free will, and sometimes it's your own free will that might take you on a different path. We talked about that earlier, your timeline. And then there's also other people's free will that might interfere and could be good for you, it might not be good for you. Sometimes we meet someone and that's amazing and they help you on a different trajectory. And then that whole trajectory changes. Like I've had people where they've met me and then they start doing my training and their trajectory wasn't necessarily going down, but wasn't necessarily in the optimal direction. And then they start learning the channeling techniques that I teach, and they take the certified channeling training courses. And then next thing you know, their whole life is they're on a totally different trajectory in a good way. And that's because we have free will. So when we're in the astral realm, is we can decide to incarnate, but some souls don't incarnate as much as others, and there could be multiple reasons for that. So without getting into comparison, without getting into ego tripping and all that, so please, 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 if you're watching this, stay away from spiritual ego. Okay, we got to none of that. It's not welcome. We have to cut that out as a species if we really want to evolve in a good, healthy way. I mean, ego is in so many ways in sports and music and all sorts of other industries, you name it, banking, and we could just go on, politics and so on. So, right. But if we want to really evolve as a species, we need to cut out that ego part of us. So what I'm about to say, there's no souls that are better than the others. Souls were all created at the same time. If we can try to see ourselves as equals, it's just some souls might be more evolved than others. That doesn't make them better than us. So even the ascended masters, who are more highly evolved souls than us, may come to Earth, but even they would say, you can do what I can do and even greater. And that's true, and we can. And that's why I teach what I teach, to help my students do what the ascended masters do, to help my students see things from this higher perspective and operate from this higher perspective. Perspectives is the way that their ascended masters operate when they incarnate on Earth. So let's take an ascended master, for example, a Jesus, a Buddha, a Thoth, Shiva, Mother Mary, and I could go on, Mother Teresa, so on and so on, right? So these people who've incarnated on planet Earth, these ascended masters, highly evolved souls, they don't usually incarnate that often. So it's actually not as common as you think. There are ascended masters that are incarnated on planet Earth right now among us. Very few again. So if you think you're one, you probably aren't. If you're watching this, you probably aren't. I'm not. I'm still evolving. I'm still learning and growing. But what these ascended masters do is they have the ability to grow and evolve at a very high rate because they're able to operate from this higher perspective while they're incarnated. So don't think that you need to be in spirit form to be able to operate like them. What they do is when they come down to earth and they incarnate, is they're very intentional about operating from this higher perspective and able to maneuver and manipulate the earthly realm in a good way, in a healthy way, the earthly plane, to be able to do these amazing miracles and work with the spirit realm and the earth plane together. And what we want to do as we're ascending is we want to make sure that we stay earthly, we stay grounded, take care of our earthly responsibilities, take care of our self-health, self-care, our self-love, all those things that need to be taken care of. And that helps us even accelerate our ascension even more by us being very intentional about taking care of ourselves and the self-help, self-love, self-care, and all the other things. So some of these souls have done is they've come down to earth and they've had massive evolution during a short period of time, and then they may only do this a dozen times or 2 dozen times, where they've incarnated on different planets or maybe planet earth, and they've evolved greatly, and they're therefore now, because they're more of an ascended master status, they don't need to incarnate as much anymore. Often my experience has been that once a soul becomes an ascended master, they tend not to incarnate as much anymore, not because for two reasons. One is because it's just not necessary. They don't need to as much. But the other bigger reason is because often in the astral realm, they're helping mentor other souls while they're in the astral realm. So just make it clear, my experience has been that rarely do ascended masters are ascended masters people's spirit guides. So if you think you have an ascended master's spirit guide, you probably don't. You probably have a soul who is a member of your soul family who helps you while you're incarnated. Most people have 3 to 5 spirit guides during any one time in their season of their life. Sometimes 2, sometimes 6, but usually 3 to 5 spirit guides. And each spirit guide is a member of your soul family. They're people like you and I in non-physical form. Each one helps in a different way, different capacity, different area of your life. Okay? But ascended masters mentor those souls, those people who want to be spirit guides for people like you, for people that are incarnated. So they work at higher level operations. They're mentoring, they're helping, they're supporting, they're coaching, they're guiding these souls in the astral realm rather than individually helping. Now, if you want to call it an ascended master, that's fine. Most likely they're not your spirit guide, but I rarely communicate and talk with ascended masters outside of my client sessions, outside of my healing sessions, because oftentimes they come in and they help with the healing and other things like that. But for my own day-to-day purpose, like day-to-day activities, day-to-day duties, day-to-day, like should I go to this place or that place? That's where my spirit guides come in. Ascended masters don't help with that kind of stuff because, again, they're usually not your spirit guides. They're usually helping your spirit guides become better spirit guides. And by the way, when you channel your spirit guides, you're helping your spirit guides as well. So please, please, please work with your spirit guides while you're incarnated, channel them, because it's helping them evolve as well. So it's a symbiosis, mutual beneficial relationship that happens between you and your spirit guides, which is the same thing that happens between your spirit guides and ascended masters. Is ascended masters are growing and evolving, and by helping your spirit guides become better spirit guides, and your spirit guides are becoming more evolved by working with these ascended masters, which are also they're evolving as well by working with you. So everyone's win-win here. It's all win-win-win. Okay, that's a really great question. Thank you. So yes, some souls don't need to incarnate as often as others, whereas others may incarnate more often because they want to. They have the desire to evolve. And now, just to make this clear, is that it's actually a good thing that when we incarnate. So some of you might be listening to this, going, "Oh, I don't want to incarnate. It's so hard. Life is so hard," and it is. Don't get me wrong, it is. I have compassion for you. I feel the same way. I felt like that most of my life. And then I had kind of an aha moment maybe about 10 or 12 years ago where I was like, you know what, Ken? Life is hard. There can be struggles, but life is also beautiful and amazing. But if I look at it from a more higher level, like a soul level, the reason why I incarnate is because when I'm incarnated, I can grow and evolve to its maximum potential. And I can't always do that when I'm in spirit form. So yes, it's best to try to, while we're incarnated, try to evolve to our maximum potential. So how do I do this? Like, very practical is I go see healers on a regular basis. I stay connected with my spirit guides on a regular basis. I'm connecting with them daily. I'm channeling them for direction, for guidance. I'm trying to do self-healing, self-clearing. I'm also working on any spiritual upgrades that need to be done on a regular basis. And then I'm also, there's a gazillion different ways to do healing. And one of my favorite ways to do healing, it's not the only one, but I do all of them, as many as I can. But the other ways that I try to do healing is through joy, through pleasure, through happiness. So things like I'll watch comedy and I'll do like different fun things. So there's actually healing through joy, through fun, through play, and being very intentional about adding that to my daily, weekly activities. Is I purposely will try to add some joy and play. Hence the term why I have the slogan: spirituality is meant to be fun. So what is it? Spirituality is meant to be what? Fun. So I keep things light and fun when it comes to spirituality. It's not always, but if I need to take a sidestep, do some healing and clearing, and then get back to my fun and play with spirituality, I try to keep it light and fun. And I noticed that when I made that decision, so I was probably about 8 years into my spiritual awakening, and I was like really like heavy and serious, and I was growing, I was learning, I was ascending somewhat. But once I made that decision to make spirituality fun and as much as possible within reason, of course, then I noticed that my growth in spirituality just skyrocketed and that whole curve changed in a good way because I'm having fun along the way. And anytime I get triggered or upset or something crappy happens or some unhealthy behaviors surface, instead of me being hard on myself and beating myself up and being like, oh, you dummy, Ken, you suck, and all the other negative self-talk that I used to do to myself. Instead, I do two things. Well, actually, three things. One is I give myself some grace, give myself some you know, room to be human and room to fumble and screw up and make mistakes and make inappropriate decisions. I give myself some grace that I'm human. The second thing I do is I love myself through it. So I'm like, you silly goose, you silly, but I love you anyways, Ken, and I love myself through it. So I talk a lot about self-love. And I do this every morning when I wake up. I put my hand on my soul. I tell myself I love me. I feel how grateful I am to be alive and all the things I'm grateful for. And then I also check in with my spirit guides and see who's around me and channel them. That's how I start every single morning. But the big one is the self-love one, and gratitude. Is I tell myself, they're all important, all three of those. And so when I do this, I'm loving myself through any mistakes that I make, any poor decisions that I make, any character defects or unhealthy decisions or behaviors that are coming out. And I love myself through it. And then the third thing that I do is I take ownership of it and I work on healing and clearing that so I don't have to repeat this the next time. So let me give you an example. Let's say somebody does something to me and then I get really upset about it and I get triggered. But whose trigger is it? It's mine. It's not them. Because what most people do, 99% of people do, is they go, oh, this person did this to me. This person did that to me. You need to change. You need to do things differently so you don't trigger me anymore. And you don't trigger, right? And we try to put the onus on the other person. But that never works. Why? Because the next person that comes along, they might do the similar behavior. And then now I'm triggered again. And I go, oh, you're supposed to change. You're supposed to do that. What you did is bad. What you did is wrong. You need to change. And then even if they change or don't change, I still have that trigger within me. And then another person comes along and they do a similar behavior. And then I'm like, oh, you need to change. You need to do things differently so you don't push my buttons and you don't trigger me. But another way to look at this is, well, what if I heal my own trigger, my own button, and then next time somebody comes along and they do this behavior that I don't like, but because I've healed and cleared this button, this trigger, now they try to push this button, there's no button to push anymore because it's gone. Right? So now we're talking. And this is how ascension happens. Not the only way, it's one of many ways that we can work on ascending. So when we do our healing and clearing and we release this baggage, whether it comes from childhood traumas, who here has had a rough childhood? Put up your hand. Like pretty much everyone, right? So I always tell people, I say, whatever happened between when you were born till you're 18 years old, it's not your fault. It's not. It's not your fault. But after, if you're 18 and above, now it's your responsibility to deal with how you were raised, how the traumas and the triggers and all the other things that happened up to that point. Like you got to take responsibility for it and heal that once and for all, because you can't keep blaming your childhood. You can, but it's not a healthy way of evolving. And so the more healing and clearing that we can do, the less of that baggage that we take, and it helps our soul to heal and our soul to evolve at greater lengths, greater levels. And then we could also add some joy to that, because the joy helps with the healing as well. Okay. So what we want to do is, like a lot of these ascended masters and souls, because they do a mass compressed amount of healing and clearing and evolving in a short period of time, maybe just a few dozen lifetimes, they don't necessarily have to come down and incarnate as frequently as the rest of the souls out there. Again, it's not a competition, but what I do is I use these ascended masters as inspiration of how can I be more like them. So it's the whole kind of thing like WWJD, what would Jesus do? Things like that. You can change that with, what would Buddha do, or change it with what would Mother Teresa do, or you name it, like any of those ones like that. So you ask yourself these questions, because then you can start to ask yourself, okay, how can I become more of a highly evolved soul, and be very intentional about it. Your spirit guides, where do they operate? They operate in the astral realm. Where is the astral realm? The astral realm is in the fourth dimension. So the astral realm is not the fourth dimension. The fourth dimension is huge. It's massive. But within that fourth dimension is the astral realm. That's where you go when you die and you cross over. You go to the astral realm to be with who? Your soul family. While you're incarnated, who is helping and supporting you? Members of your soul family, which are who? Your spirit guides. And if I can ask myself on a daily, regular basis, whatever situation and circumstance comes up, I ask myself, okay, how do my spirit guides observe this situation? How do my spirit guides observe what's happening right now in this circumstance? And if I can ask myself, okay, how would my spirit guides respond and deal with this situation? Now, what are you doing? You're starting to operate more like an ascended master. And if you start doing this over and over and over again, your soul is going to evolve at great lengths, like very quickly, very fast. If you're doing all these things I'm mentioning, like the healing, the clearing, the spiritual upgrades, operating like your spirit guides do, like ascended masters do from these higher dimensions, these higher realms, then you can start to evolve a lot more quickly, a lot faster. And then maybe you won't incarnate as often, as frequently. But also remember that incarnating is a privilege, that it's a beautiful gift, because it helps your soul to evolve in all the different ranges, all the different directions, in a much quicker, faster, healthier way. So there's a lot of benefits to incarnating. Don't think it's a bad thing, because it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's actually a good thing. And if once you start looking at incarnation as an amazing thing, and that's where gratitude comes in. So for me, one thing I've noticed, the correlation between loving life and gratitude, and then loving being incarnated. Because when I'm grateful for, I'm grateful for the nature and the birds and the, being alive and having this body, and this miracle of a body. It's so incredible, like the meridian system. And when you get into the deep parts, not just the physical but the non-physical, but even if just the physical, like how the you take a breath of air in your lungs, and the oxygen from the air goes through your capillaries, and it transforms it from into oxygen, and then it oxygenates your red blood cells, and then that helps go through your body to give the nutrients to the rest of your body. And that's not even the white blood cells. And then we could just go on and on and on. That's just the circulatory system. Never mind all the other systems that we have. And oh my goodness, it's just a miracle. And to the fact that we can even be alive and not just have relationships with ourselves, but relationships with other souls that are in their packages. And then also when you include animals like pets, cats or dogs, and oh my goodness, it's just, we could go on how blessed we are to be on this planet. So if you feel that you're blessed, type in a message, something that you're blessed for, something that you feel grateful for. Expressing gratitude is also really beneficial as well. And then also give your name and where you're from. I'll give you a shout out. This is the Ask Ken Show. So welcome to the Ask Ken Show. It's such a pleasure being here. We do have a question from from Cheryl from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. She asks, how do we know if we have an energetic parasite? Not sure how to word that, attached to us. How do we know if we have an energetic parasite attached to us? If we have one, how do we relinquish it? Okay, so just to be clear, that's a very complex question because it could be multiple sources. So what you're talking about, Cheryl, and so correct me if I'm wrong, there could be multiple things. So parasite could be, um, so it's kind of like when somebody says, oh, there's an entity in the room. There's an entity. Well, what is this entity? Oftentimes they don't know what they're talking about. Like, is that a soul? Is that a being? If it's a soul, like what kind of soul? Is it a random soul? Is it a random soul? Is it an ascended master soul? Is it a loved one soul? Is it a soul family member? Is it a spirit guide soul? Is it a lost soul? Is it a being like a sprite or fairy? Like what kind of entity is it, right? So a lot of times when people say things, they just give a generic term that they don't really know exactly what they're talking about. So really advanced channeling, which is where I want to get all of you viewers that are watching, I want to get you to a point where you always know who you're channeling and who the entity is. Like, is it a soul? And if it's so, what kind of soul? Is it a being? And if so, what kind of being? Beings don't have souls. So what kind of being could it be? Could it be a sprite, a fairy, a dragon, an angel, things like that? And so we want to always know the specifics of who we're channeling and what kind of topic we're talking about. But it doesn't just apply to who we're channeling, it also applies to other topics as well. So, for example, people might say, oh, I have a block. And then when I check psychically, and again, I went on this learning journey around blocks because I used to think, oh, a block is a block, it's just one thing. But then over time, over the many years of working with thousands and thousands of students, is I realized that a block isn't just one thing. Sometimes there could be multiple different kinds of blocks, and they could be blocks in different parts, different aspects of the person. So not necessarily physical, but sometimes non-physical. Sometimes it could be a psychological block. Sometimes it could be an energetic block, and so on and so on. And so with channeling and through a very advanced technique that I developed called medical mediumship, I can scan the person and I can find out what exact block they have. And then I can also clear it and heal it if necessary, if they actually do have a block. But when it comes to blocks aren't always like black and white. They're not always a full block. Let me give you an example. Let's say you have a sink and the sink is kind of plugged a bit. So I would use a toilet analogy, but that's kind of gross. So we'll just stick with the sink analogy. So we have a sink, and the sink is the water's not draining as quickly as it could be. Does that mean the sink has a block? The answer is yes, but it's a partial block. It's not a full block. But sometimes if it gets really bad, then yeah, like you can put water in there and then nothing's going to go down. Like the water's just not draining at all. So that's a full, complete block. What I found from my students over the years is that when someone comes to me and say they have a block, sometimes they don't. Sometimes I check, I'm like, no, you don't have a block. They're like, yeah, I'm sure I have a block. And then I get them to connect with their guides and they're channeling their guides. And I haven't done anything with them. Except connect them, like have them connect with their guides. I didn't do anything to them or with them. They did it all on their own. And I'm like, see, you don't have a block. And they're like, oh, okay. I thought all this whole time, I thought I had a block. I'm like, no, you didn't. But sometimes people come to me and they say they have a block and they legitimately do. But most of the times when they have a block, it's just a partial block. It's not a full block. It's not a complete block. So then in those cases, then I clear that block and and then they're back. And just remember too, there's many different kinds of blocks. So there could be a block with connecting with your spirit guides, but there could also be a block with like a trajectory, a path that you're trying to go down in your life. There could be a block in a very specific area of your life. So the other areas are open, but this one area you're struggling with. And again, just because you're struggling with one area of your life doesn't mean you have a block, but it might. So what I've found through experience is that oftentimes when someone's struggling with one area of their life, it could be one thing that's hindering them or holding them back from moving forward in that area of their life. or it could be actually many things that are holding them back, not just one thing. So that's where I call it multifaceted. When someone's having a struggle in trying to move forward in one area of their life, but it's not just one thing that's causing them to struggle, it's multiple things, it's multifaceted. So then through the advanced healing techniques that I train my students on, I will teach them how to identify those different areas that might need to be healed or cleared, so that that person can work on healing and clearing those areas, and then that block is gone. But it's not just maybe one block, it could be multiple blocks as well, or it could be multiple healings and clearings. It could be us, worrying about what others think, and that's blocking us or holding us back. It could be past life stuff, it could be childhood stuff, it could be stuff with one of your brothers or sisters growing up, it could be ancestral, like coming down from your lineage, and holding you back or hindering you from moving forward in this area of your life. And I could just keep going and going. So when it comes to a topic like energetic parasites, there's multiple things here that could be a factor. So one is that it could be like an actual a soul. So it wouldn't be a soul in the astral realm. There's three different realms. There's the astral realm, there's the animal spirit realm, and then there's the in-between realm. So it could be, when talking about a parasite, it could be an actual lost soul that's attached to the person. So there's a whole bunch of different kinds of lost souls. I won't get into it now. It's beyond the scope of this topic. But there's a whole wide range of lost souls and the kinds that they have. The one I'm talking about is an attached lost soul, but there's, again, a bunch of different kinds. And so that could be like a parasite is what you're referring to. But again, it's not. It's a lost soul. It could also be like a curse or a hex. Again, that's a whole different topic that I do teach about, but that's beyond the scope of this talk right now. It could be also an energetic cord or energetic cord. It could be a psychic link as well. It could be either one, which are two different things. So it could be one of those things. And then, so that's why there's power in specifics. If we're just very general and we're trying to do healing and clearing on it, it might work, it might not, because we're so generic. But when we can get very specific and identify exactly what the specific cause of what's going on is, then we can do very precise healing on the person. Let me give you an example. 1,000 years ago, 500 years ago, science wasn't where it used to be. Like, we didn't always have the modern science that we do now. Sometimes people think, oh, we've always had this. That's all you've ever known in this lifetime. But go back a few hundred years ago, which actually isn't that long ago, is if somebody would come in like with a stomach ache, a belly ache, and they would go to the doctor and they'd say, oh, I have a stomach ache, and can you help me with this? The doctors back 500 to 1,000 years ago would be like, oh, I don't know, I'm not sure what to do, because they didn't have the technology that they have now. So let's say the person died, and then the doctor would, with a scalpel, they would open up the patient and they'd look inside and they'd see all these different things, but they didn't know what they were. Well, they were organs, but they didn't know what these organs do, what their functions were. Again, we're talking like 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago. They didn't know. They just didn't know. But they looked like things, but they didn't know what it was. So now with modern technology, we can look inside a person, like we know what the different organs do, what their functions are. If a person has a pain in a certain part of their body, we can then send them for a scan, and then through that scan we could go, oh, this is what's going on with that part of your body. It needs healing. So then the person goes in for surgery. They lay down. Maybe they're put unconscious, maybe they're not, maybe they're wide awake, but they use their very precise precision tools to go in there and they do healing on that person with their laser technology and this tiny little incision, and then that person's healthy and good again. Why can the doctors do that? Because they're very precise. They know exactly where to go, what each organ does, what healing needs to be done, so that they can go in there very tightly, very, very precisely, and do the healing on that part of the body. And then the patient, maybe in a few days is healthy and healed, maybe in a few hours, because nowadays there's very little repercussions to that. So the same similar concept applies to the healing that we do on people. when we know exactly what the person needs for healing, then we can be very precise. That's where there's power in specifics. And so when it comes to parasites, instead of just using like example, if we say, oh, there's an entity in the room, well, what kind of entity? What kind of, is it a soul? Is it a being? If it's a soul, what kind of soul? If it's a being, what kind of being? The same thing with parasite. Okay, so if it's a parasite, well, is it really a parasite, or is it a attached, like lost soul? Is it an attached? Is it a being that's affecting the person? Is it a curse or a hex? Is it a psychic link or an energetic tether or a cord, or on and on and on? Is it, maybe it's psychic daggers, like people have been sending bad vibes to the person. So then, do we need to increase the protection to that person? Do we need to like do any clearing on that person? Is it an ancestral thing? Is it coming down through your ancestors? And I could go on and on and on and on. So there can be energetic parasites, there can be psychological parasites, there can be all sorts of different things that this term parasites might mean. And so what we want to do, first of all, is get very precise of what we're talking about. And then from there, work with our spirit guides to see if we can heal and clear this, whether it's on ourselves or on another person. But again, you got to always know what you're doing and make sure you're not influencing the answer. You do not want to make assumptions, because it's kind of like a doctor going in with their precision tools and just say, oh, the person has a pain in their stomach. So, oh, I don't know, most likely it's their small intestine. So they go in with their surgical tools and they start doing a bunch of work on the small intestine, only to find out later it had nothing to do with the small intestine. It had to do with the person's gallbladder. And then the patient's like, well, you just wrecked my intestine for no reason, but I still have this initial pain that I came in with, which is the gallbladder. Like, that wouldn't be cool, right? So the same thing, if you think of yourself, if you're a healer, think of yourself like a surgeon. You don't want to be guessing. How do you do this? You work with your spirit guides. Your spirit guides will help you make sure that you're accurate, that you're intentional, that you're precise. And then from there, you can also know what kind of healing or clearing that person needs, again, whether it's for yourself or for someone else. So you're welcome, Cheryl. She said, thank you very much. You're wonderful. Okay, so we have Les from Calgary. Hi, Les. Calgary, Alberta, Canada. He wants to know, are the dragons that are with us similar to our spirit guides that come and go as necessary, or are they dedicated to us for a whole lifetime? Yeah. So our spirit guides are souls. These souls are members of our soul family. So when we're incarnated, these soul family members help and assist us. They're our spirit guides. And they could change throughout different periods of our life. So we can have a spirit guide that's with us for our entire lifetime, or we can have spirit guides that come and go throughout different seasons in our life. My experience has been that most times the same spirit guides that you had from childhood have changed. And sometimes I've had some people, it's rare, but I've had some people where they still have one spirit guide, maybe two that are from childhood, but that's very rare. Most of the times, whatever age you are now, you have a brand new set of spirit guides. But it's not like when you go through a different season of your life, you get whole package in, whole package out. Usually it's one comes in, switches with another one, that one comes out. Or sometimes if you have three spirit guides, you might get one who comes in, now you have five. And then, one steps back a while later, now you have four. So the amount that you have can change as well. So when it comes to totem animals and dragons, is not everyone has a totem animal or dragon that helps them in every season of their life. It's been my experience. They'll have a totem animal or dragon that will come help them and assist them for a period of time. And then when that period's done, that totem animal or dragon will step back. And then they might go a period of their life where they don't have any. And then a totem animal or dragon might step forward, and then they help and assist them, but they're not spirit guides, just to make that clear. They might help and assist them for a period of time. And then when that period is done, maybe a few weeks, few months, maybe a few years. So don't get attached, right? Because they could change. And don't think just because you had one for one period of your life, it's going to be like that forever. People also get this ego tripping stuff where they think, oh, I have all these dragons around me helping me. And it's like, okay, again, that's just for this period. And usually my experience has been when someone has a dragon that's assisting them, it's usually just one dragon. It doesn't mean that another one or two might come in from time to time to help and assist, but it's usually just one dragon. But when that period and that season's over, you might have no dragons helping and assisting you. Or you might have ones that are on the peripheral, but they're not really full-time helpers or assistants. Same thing with totem animals, has been my experience. So really good question. What we don't want to do is we don't want to be making this stuff up. We don't want to be making assumptions, and we have to let our pride go. We don't want to be like, oh yeah, look at me. I have this, this dragon with me and it's going to be with me forever. And it might not. Most likely at some point it will step back, and then you might not have one for a while. And that's okay. That's okay. They come in when it's necessary, and they usually come in for a season of your life. So there's been times in my life where I've had totem animals and sometimes I don't. Right now in this current season, I do. And so I work with that totem animal. But the last season, just a few months ago, I did not. I didn't have a totem animal. But I didn't get all upset about it because I know what I know now. But before I used to get upset about it. But I've learned that I don't need to anymore. So really good question, Les. Thank you for asking. Again, of all the souls or beings that that are the number one most important ones to channel, it's our spirit guides over and above anything else. So if there was an order of importance, in my opinion, it's our spirit guides. And then after our spirit guides might be like our totem animal. If we have one, it might be a dragon if we have one. And then after that is everything else. So like ascended masters and angels and everything else as after that. But number one priority is always spirit guides. Why? Because your spirit guides are a member of your soul family. And while you're incarnated, they know why you've chosen to incarnate, how you're meant to grow and evolve in this lifetime, and how you're meant to make the most out of this lifetime. And they're here to help you on your day-to-day basis on all different areas of your life, like health, relationships, like healing, spiritual growth, hobbies, fun, play, you name it. Anything you can imagine to do with your earthly living, your spirit guides are here to help you with that. And then every once in a while, you might notice the presence of an angel come in. When they come in and your guides give approval, yeah, go ahead and channel them. Or you might assume, or one thing not to assume though, is that a lot of times people get mixed up and they think that their spirit guides are angels. They're not. Your spirit guides are people like you and I in non-physical form, but they may feel like angels because they operate at that such a higher level. So if you feel this amazing, like beautiful, loving energy come in, most likely it's your spirit guides. But every once in a while, you'll notice an angel. And at the more advanced training that I do, like with my students, I'm like, okay, you've learned to channel all these different kinds of souls. Now let's channel an angel. And they're like, whoa, it's like so much different, so different. And it's because angels are different in a good way, in a healthy way. But they're not necessarily your spirit guides because your angels work on more of a higher level channeling and higher level operation, whereas your spirit guides work with you on a day-to-day basis, helping you with your soul's evolution and so on. Okay, so good question. So next question is, from Cheryl, do spirit guides know our soul's purpose? The answer is yes. I want to clarify this. Okay. So if you're a 3-year-old, if a 3-year-old asks you a question about, I don't know, let's say calculus and psychometry, like really advanced mathematics, are you going to tell that 3-year-old all the intricate details about mathematics? And probably not, because it's not age appropriate. It's that the 3-year-old it would be so far beyond. But if you were to say to the 3-year-old, okay, I know you're really interested in mathematics and you love it, but let's start teaching you about some of the basics first, and we'll get to that. We're not hiding it or keeping it from you. We're going to get to that, but let's learn how to do some addition and some subtraction. Let's get you really good at that. And then after that, we'll get you really good at division and multiplication and so on. And then eventually we'll get into fractal, like more advanced, uh, mathematics, um, and so on and so on as the child learns and evolves. So it's the same thing with when you channel your spirit guides about your soul's purpose. Okay, so let me take a step back. When you are in the astral realm and you're with your soul family and you're just about to incarnate, you work with ascended masters and other souls from your soul family on what is going to be your purpose for this lifetime and how you want to grow and evolve as a soul in this lifetime. But it's not guaranteed that that's going to happen because you have free will. And then there's other people's free will. There's a whole bunch of variables and factors in there. However, while you're incarnated, depending on where you're at in your journey, where you are in different seasons of your life, your spirit guides are going to reveal different knowledge and wisdom that's appropriate to where you are in your journey. So the same thing going back to that 3-year-old, you're not going to tell the 3-year-old all the things about what's going to happen in their life and their soul's purpose and everything at that 3-year-old stage. Right now, they're just learning to walk. They're just learning to speak and master language and they haven't even learned how to read and write yet. So we're not going to get them into that really advanced stuff. So whatever age you are now, know that your spirit guides have revealed lots of things along your way, along your path already up to this point. And then as you continue to evolve more and more, they will reveal more and more as you continue to grow and evolve as to what's your soul's purpose and why you're here. So I teach whole entire trainings and workshops around finding your soul's purpose. I love it. It's one of my most favorite topics. And I want to make this very clear. You don't just have one purpose as to why you chose to incarnate. You have many purposes. And these purposes might change or come to a conclusion during different seasons and phases of your life. So, for example, that 3-year-old child might, one of their at that season might just be, oh, I want to learn to speak, or maybe to start to sing and use my voice, or maybe it's to learn how to be fun and goofy and silly and stuff like that. So, for example, I'll give you an example. Is when I ended up being a full-time single father and raising my daughter since she was 5, and now she's in her 20s and things like that. So when I was first raising her as a full-time single father, part of my purpose was to raise and be a good father and raise my daughter into becoming a healthy adult, which she is now. Okay. But now that she's an adult, that purpose is, we still keep in touch, we still talk, all that, but the bulk of that purpose is complete. While I was doing that, raising my daughter as a full-time single father, I was also building my spiritual business. So I was doing multiple purposes at the same time. So what I'm getting at is that you may have a time in your life where there's a purpose that you're meant to be doing, and that purpose comes to a conclusion and you're done with that purpose, you can move on to another one. And at the same time, simultaneously, you could be pursuing multiple purposes at the same time. How cool is that, right? Phenomenal. So just to know that there's not just one purpose and one reason why you've chosen to incarnate, there's many purposes. And so what you do is, as you're going through and navigating these different seasons of your life, you work with your spirit guides to help you. Okay, in this season of my life, this time in my life, what is my purpose? What am I meant to learn? How am I meant to grow? How am I meant to evolve as a soul? And to know that it might not just be one way, but many ways. Pretty cool, right? Okay. And then there's a lot more to it than that. There's whole entire exercises and activities that I take my students through on how to really find their soul's purpose. It's really magical, really beautiful. All right. We have another question here. I'm Maura from California, Oregon. Nice. Thank you. Welcome, Mariah, for tuning in. I'm grateful for my kiddos. I know I was meant to be a mom of 2 boys and 1 girl from a young age. They're teaching me so much about healing. Yeah, that's beautiful. So this is an example where this mother that's part of her season, her soul's purpose, maybe to be raising her children and helping them evolve as well. And their children are also helping her evolve, which is so beautiful. Okay. All right. So we're coming to the end of the Ask Ken show. If you have any questions, comments, just type it in the chat box, and then I will answer the questions. And also feel free to say your name and where you're from, and I will say hi. So let's go on to the last question we have is, yes. What if your soul doesn't want to incarnate? So I did talk quite a bit about this, is that your soul does want to incarnate. It does want to grow and evolve. Even if we don't on an earthly basis, our mind might say, I don't want to incarnate. If you feel into your soul right now, it actually wants to. Why does it want to? Because that's where it can grow and evolve to its maximum potential, is when it's in an incarnated form. So whether it's this planet or another planet, and I just want to make this very clear, is that a lot of times people are like, oh, planet Earth is so hard and so horrible and it's so tough being incarnated here. And I don't disagree. I agree with you. There's some tough parts that are hard to incarnate on this planet. However, if you think about the trillions and trillions of stars out there with planets, trillions of stars, of all the planets out there, planet Earth is actually somewhere in the middle. It's not super enlightened. It's not super heavy and dark either. Like there's some planets out there that I've incarnated on that were way, way, way worse than planet Earth. Way heavier, way more difficult to operate and to, so just know that planet Earth is somewhere in the middle. Definitely, it's not the most evolved, but there's ones that are way more difficult to incarnate on than planet Earth. So be grateful that you're on planet Earth. I can guarantee that there probably have been other past lifetimes that you've incarnated on more difficult planets to evolve on. But the biggest thing to take away out of this is, how can I grow and evolve the most out of this lifetime? All right. So my name is Ken Lewicki. So thank you so much for tuning in to the Ask Ken show. I do this once a month. And also feel free to check out my website, channelinginc.com, for upcoming channeling trainings, channeling events, my monthly Ascension group healing, where I do mass healings on a group for 1 hour every month, and also a whole bunch of spiritual upgrades during that 1 hour. It's phenomenal. Have a great day, everyone. See you all soon.